Hi, it's me, Ingrid, the INFP, and I'm going to answer some questions because I received some questions. I have a 15-year-old who was wondering about the future. So let's see what her questions were. I wonder what your experience was like as a medical student. Did you have regrets, mental breakdowns? Did you have to dissect bodies? Were people big-headed? Also about how it is not working for a company until I'm 70. Another commenter asked about how you know if medical school is a good fit when you think about how S's and J types usually do better in that environment. So let's take one at a time here. Did I have any regrets? Yes, many regrets. I'm not sure if they're like regrets or more like just afterthoughts. I came out of high school and went directly to medical school. In Sweden, a lot of people take breaks between. So I think that if I had chosen to do it again, I might have taken a year off, like a gap year kind of thing. Or maybe I would have taken some breaks within med school, just so that I could like see other areas of life and maybe have made a better, like more informed decision. I just dived into med school and I realized there are many other paths I could have gone. And as an INFP, it's important for us to like see the different possibilities because otherwise it's pretty easy that we like end up stuck in a route, and that's not really our style. So I would say that my biggest regret is not like taking some time off. At the same time, I didn't know that that was a possibility at the time because I had grown up in France where nobody took gap years. So I had no idea. So I'm not like hard on myself on that one. But maybe I could have taken a semester off here and there, or like taken it easier on the studying, and maybe worked some part-time job at the same time. So that's my biggest regret. Also, I kind of like did the bare minimum throughout med school. Like whenever I could go home earlier, I went home earlier. And since I was so anxious and shy, I didn't like having to do things, and that meant that I missed a lot of opportunities throughout med school, like doing different things, meeting different patients, doing that extra step. At the same time, I was battling depression, so I don't know if I had the energy to take that extra step, but it would have maybe helped me further along the way. So that's what I regret. I guess I'm not 100% sure still now if med school was a good idea, but that's how my life ended up. So that's what I'm thinking about the subject right now. I might have maybe done an exchange. I wanted to do an exchange to France, which is my home country, but unfortunately France had very rigid rules about their curriculum, which wasn't really compatible with the Swedish version of things for the semester that I thought of going away. So I think I would have enjoyed an experience as an exchange. At the same time, since I'd moved to Sweden, whole of medical school, I mean, was in a different country than the one I grew up in. So I've kind of been in an exchange for the past 7 years, if you think of it that way. So maybe it wasn't that big of a loss. So those are my regrets. Mental breakdowns, yeah, well, of course, many. I've had many, and as somebody with anxiety and depression, I had more than your average INFP, I guess. I've many times thought I wasn't going to make it, thought of dropping out. I think it's common for everybody to like think about dropping out during med school, but I think that as INFPs, we have more of a tendency to have breakdowns compared to like your regular ESTJ or whatever. My latest breakdown was when I had to tell a family that somebody, a patient of mine, had died. And the worst part of it was that I had to go. Well, this is now during internship, so I've finished medical school, so like I have the power to do this. Is that I had met this person at the emergencies the day before, met the son, and told them that they had to stay at the hospital. This man had a cancer, and so he was immunocompromised, meaning that he had more risk of getting bad, like weird diseases because his immune system didn't work right. So, I didn't know what this was. I just hospitalized him, and that was like my part of it. And then the next day, the nurses from from the department called me while I was at the emergencies and told me somebody has died, and I asked who, and I recognized the name. And this was the second time and last time I had to report that somebody was dead. It's just that I had seen this person alive, which I hadn't done with the first person I had to report to death. So it was weird. I went in. There were like 4 nurses like staring at me to like, because I have the authority to like pronounce this person dead, which is really strange for me. Leadership positions in INFPs is like we're not really good at that. So I had to do that, and then so I listened to the heart, and then I was like, no, okay, he's dead. And then I had to fill out the pieces of paper. And then they said, oh, the family is here. Come and talk to the family. So I was like, oh shit, I don't know. I've never done this before. So the family was there. They had been like well informed while the patient was still alive. So I sat on the sofa and I had to deliver the news. And I think it went well, but like I was kind of stumbling over my words, and I had to act very professional, and it was hard because I recognized the son, and the son started crying. Well, but the good thing was that he recognized me, so I managed to like keep a semblance of control over this. But it's only when I came home and then I went to sleep and I was like, okay, everything's fine. But then I woke up like at 5 in the morning and like broke down crying, and I was like, why am I crying? I'd kind of like forgotten about what had happened during the day. And then it all came back and I was like, oh, it must be because of this that I did during the day. So that was my latest breakdown. I was like, shit, these are things that I will have to do in my career later on. And that is part of my job. And I was like unsure how I will be able to cope with that in the future. So yeah, that was my latest breakdown. I have a lot of breakdowns over things that I feel like incompetent to do and that kind of thing. But I think that in the end, like the experience of being a doctor is like so different from everything else. I think it's worth it, even with the breakdowns. Did I have to dissect bodies? Yes. I actually liked dissecting bodies, which sounds crazy. Dissecting bodies is not the same thing as an autopsy. That's something that's different. I had to both do dissections, which is something that isn't in every university, so check up on that. Because at my university, we had actual body donators, and we had actual bodies. Some universities don't do dissections. But I actually became an anatomy tutor because I thought it was like fun. I had a really good tutor myself, so it kind of inspired me to do it. These bodies are very much dead, like they have treated the bodies beforehand with formalin and other procedures. So it sounds awful to say this, but they're not as human as you could think that they would be. Autopsies, on the other hand, these are people who have like died the day before or the same day, and like it's still fresh, and they're trying to determine cause of death. It smells different. It's gross in another way. So we had maybe like 3 days where we had autopsies, and maybe like 2 weeks where we dissected the bodies. And then we had one day where we got to go to the right, how do you say, forensic medicine. And those are people like that have like just died and they're trying to find the cause of death. And that was gross. Like, yeah, I don't think that I would become a right medicine because, well, these people were alive for just a few minutes ago, you know? So I thought dissections was fun. Like, at first, the first time is scary for everybody. So, I mean, it smells weird. It's weird if you've never seen a dead body before, which I hadn't. Several people had. It's weird, like the people in med school are a varied bunch, and a lot of people had already seen dead bodies. Since it isn't anybody that you know, that kind of feels better, I guess. But we saw the bodies are like, at first, the first time that we went into the room, we just looked at the bodies. If we didn't want to touch them, we didn't need to touch them. We could just like stand at a distance if we wanted to. We could touch if we wanted to. So that was our first day. The second time we had to do that, like some people wanted to engage and some people didn't. There were always chairs that you could sit in, and if you felt like you were going to pass out, which some people did, I didn't, but I felt a little bit woozy, so maybe I sat on a chair at some point. But it's nothing unusual to like feel weird about it. Then once you start getting into it, it doesn't gross you out as much. You start getting used to it. What was strange for me was mostly like the head and the hands, because they're the most human parts of the body. Like, you know, the stomach isn't really something like as human as the hands, whereas the head. The worst was like the eyes, because, well, if you've never seen a dead person's eyes before, it's shocking. But like once I liked the anatomy, like naming finding the different parts and naming them. And the most gross part was like scooping out fat, because there is a lot of fat around the structures, and it can kind of gross you out. So I'm just saying that as an INFP, I don't think that like actually changes things. I think that it's individual. I don't think the MBTI plays such a big role in the dissection of bodies. Even if our empathy is high, I think that's like INFPs, like if there's something that needs to be done, we will do it. So I think that's we're okay with it. And I wouldn't say that an ESTJ or another sensing type would actually feel better about it. It's tough on anybody. So that's what I have to say about dissecting bodies. Were people big-headed? Yeah, there are always some big-headed people. Also, as an INFP, I had this like terrible inferiority complex and like imposter syndrome that is like hard to understand for certain other types. It's just because like we just feel incompetent wherever we go, I think. Because our strengths are something that's like invisible to most people. But we definitely had some arrogant people. And I mean, I don't have contact with those people anymore because they just tire me out. We had some like ex-athletes, I mean, that were like high-level athletes that went to medicine later. And they were very arrogant. There are a lot of arrogant people out there, but I guess that since a lot of medical students are smart, you end up with the arrogant people. There are arrogant doctors, but there are also a lot of humble people that don't let their like being good at everything get to them. It's just that in any like leadership slash highly qualified job, you'll find arrogant people. As long as they're not arrogant with the patients, I'm fine with that, but I don't want to talk to them. So that's about people being big-headed. And then I had a question about how do I know medical school is the right fit? And as I said before, I don't have the answer to that because I'm not sure if it's the right fit for me 7 years later. But I would say that often when you start medical school, you realize that like there's nothing you would rather do. Like, what would I rather do? I don't know. Maybe I would do research within the biomedical field. But that has problems on its own. I had a mentor during medical school. We would meet him once a semester, and like he's like a counselor kind of person. And he he said that medicine is just like any other job. There are pros and cons with any job. So even if I see a lot of cons with medicine, there are also a lot of cons with like being stuck in an office. There are also lots of negatives about if doing research. So I think that medicine doesn't have more or less pros and cons than other things. So I think that it fits me because I like biology and I actually like meeting people. I didn't know that this about myself before medical school, but I do like meeting people and talking to them. So it's hard for me to answer that. As for S and J and T types being like dominating in medicine, I would say that that is true. Even though I think that being an intuitive and being a feeler are the most important qualities in medicine, as opposed to being a sensor, as opposed to being a T, as opposed to being E or a J. Being an intuitive helps you with understanding medicine, with the cerebral part of it, while the feeling helps with the human part of it. So abstractly, medicine might correlate with N and F. Unfortunately, I would say that it, like the functions that you would need would actually be FE and NI, neither of which are our best functions. So even if N and F are important, it's actually FE and NI that are that would be most useful as a doctor, according to me. Then the fact that like the reality of medicine is that it is a very STJ kind of job. It's hard to. I mean, a lot of people are sensing, thinking, judging types in medicine, and it is hard to like talk about anything creative in medicine because it isn't a really creative job, and INFPs do crave that creativity, and I'm trying to like figure out an outlet for that doesn't have to do with my job, but it's hard because I don't really have one of those, like I'm not great at drawing or anything else. But I think it's important for an INFP to find a creative outlet, because medicine is so hard and cold, and the feeling part of it is actually more like the ESFJ kind of feeling. So yeah, that's what I would say about how it is being around a lot of SJ types, is that you need to find creativity in other parts of your life, and that it is a very competitive world. So that's why I would say that it can be a little bit tough on nerves for an INFP to be part of that world. There's also like a disconnect that INFPs often feel with SJs, especially STJs, but also with SPs, any sensor actually, about our view of the world. I think that being a nurse would not be for me. Even if it seems like a very caring and like INFP job in some way, nurses are so very much SFJ types that like I can't connect with them, and that's okay. But it does make you feel kind of alienated from others. Being with doctors, though, they're more likely to be N types, and so you can connect with them intellectually, or spiritually, in a better way. So I think that intuitiveness is important. And then our feeling is not the same as like FE feeling, which can be misinterpreted a lot. But I think is also a strength that we keep our feelings separate from other people, as opposed to FE users, because that helps us get through the tough job that medical school is. So those are my thoughts for the moment. I hope that answered some of your questions. Have a great day. Bye.